Hey guys, Steve Vigil here again, and just so glad to be able to give you some more education about passive investing, private mortgage lending, all these great things that we have been able to do in our career as real estate investors. Through the hundreds of homes we've been able to flip, the great properties we've been able to buy and keep as rental properties, and some wonderful owner finance deals and mortgage note deals we do. We've been able to do all that through using passive investors, and it's been a great tool for us, and we've been learned an awful lot over the years in doing it. And we think that there's some very important messages to teach everyone about the proper way to go about if you're going to be looking, trying to find passive investors, or if you're a passive investor trying to find opportunities to put your money to work. We have worked from both sides. Like I said, we've borrowed millions of dollars to do all these wonderful things we've been able to do in our careers. We've also been on the lending side as well. So it allows me to oftentimes teach from both sides and give that great education from both perspectives, which I think is very important. And so what I want to talk about today, we're going to talk about analyzing deals. If you're on the borrowing side, most of the time we know how to analyze deals. If we're on the lending side, however, a lot of times we don't have any idea how that works. So we're going to kind of talk about that real quick here. Let me do share my screen. And what we need to figure out, I think, as a passive investor, if we're going to be the lender, what formula works for us? What are we willing to put our money to work at? What percentages? And so I wanted to just give some analyzation on deals of how I think you should look at it. But you have to decide as an individual what's going to work best for you. As a private lender, you need to know the formula that you're willing to lend at. So are you going to want to lend, or only going to lend at 70%, 75%, or 80%? Meaning that you're going to have either 20% equity in the deal, 25% equity, or 30% equity. And I think this is an individual's choice of what you want to do. And I believe that different types of deals can allow you to use different percentages of what you want to do. I think if you're going to be, lending money to someone to flip a property, I think that you definitely need to be in that 70% range to protect yourself from anything that goes wrong, from all the unknowns that happen in rehabs. And I can say that because I've rehabbed lots of properties, and there's always unknowns in that situation. And if you're using a 70% rule, then you know that you're putting yourself in a pretty good position. If you're lending on longer term rental properties, if you're lending potentially on mortgage notes, you can potentially go to that 75 and 80% range because the numbers and the situation is much different in that scenario. So let's just go over a few little terms. For those of you, this is not for the guy that's wanting to, but it's not for the borrower who should know their numbers. This is for the lender that doesn't necessarily know their numbers, and I want to make sure that you know your numbers because it's really important you do. And I think most of us are very familiar with ARVR, after repair value. And so let's just use an example of 75% for our ARV. That's going to give us whatever our base number is going to be, and then you're going to take your repairs out of that. So these are the numbers you need to be looking at when that potential borrower is coming to you and wants to use your money for a deal. You need to be able to look at that and know these formulas. And if you don't know how to run these comps yourself or have the ability to, then you need to find a realtor or another investor that that will help you with these numbers. But at least now you know what they're looking at and how they're looking at it. I think it's important that you know that. Don't just rely on anybody giving you numbers, but educate yourself so you can look at it and make a good educated guess or educated decision yourself. I think that's majorly important. So let's just kind of do an example here. We've got a property that ARV is at $200,000. We're going to multiply that by 75%. That's going to give us $150,000. That's our base price. That's not what we're going to lend on. That's our base price. And so then we need to subtract our repairs out of it. And in this example, I'm just using $30,000 as our repair budget. Totally an example, but that's going to give you MAO of $120,000, and that is maximum allowable offer. So you know that if a potential borrower is coming to you and they bring you these numbers and you can confirm these numbers, this would be a good deal. This would be a 70% deal. So you've got some margin in there if something goes wrong. You've got some margin in there if you potentially have to take that property back, which we never want to do. We never want to see that happen, but it does happen. So we have to talk about it. So what do? We need to find a realtor or an investor that can help us produce that CMA. That CMA is going to give us these numbers. It's going to tell us what our ARV is. And that's what you need to go off of. Don't go off of Zillow. Don't go off of these free services out there. You need to get your true numbers, and getting a CMA, competitive market analysis, from the MLS is what's going to give you true numbers of what that ARV is. Second to that, you need to have a realtor or an investor that knows how to run those comps. So you make sure they're giving you the numbers in that neighborhood, and you don't want numbers from 2 neighborhoods over. You want numbers from your neighborhood around that property to make sure you've got a good solid ARV. Then the math is pretty easy after that. If you know how to do your repairs, that can always be a tricky one too. But also, if you're finding good borrowers and you're meeting good borrowers that are bringing you good, honest deals, then this is going to help you with your numbers. If you might want to have a borrower or potential borrower bring you a scope of work of what needs to be done on that property, and have them give you numbers for the cost of those repairs. I have that happen to me every now and then when I'm on the borrower side. In the beginning, I had it happen even more. And so actually, as the borrower, it helped me sharpen my skills and make sure that my numbers were good, because I actually had one very good lender that would wanted me to give him a scope of work, and I put all the numbers down by it. And it actually, like I said, helped me sharpen my skills as the borrower going to potential lenders. But if you're the lender, and we're talking from the lender side here, this is the kinds of things I think you should be looking for in that individual that wants to borrow from you. If someone just comes up and throws numbers out at you, that should be a red flag, in my opinion. So this is very simple, basic formulas here, and I think another very important point of this is decide, depending on the deal, what you want to lend at: 70%, 75%, or 80%. I'll share here real quick. So just a quick example of how the numbers work. These numbers should be this formula should stay the same for you every single time. It's just a matter of making sure you have a good ARV, plugging whatever that percentage is that you're comfortable with in: 70%, 75%, 65%. Doesn't matter. It's totally up to you as the lender. Then you can go out and you can start to analyze these deals and know that you've got a good borrower bringing you a good deal. And that's what we want. We want this to be a winning situation for everybody. Is this not about beating up your potential borrower not to do the deal? The idea is to build a relationship with people so we can keep doing business over and over again. And that's what's really important. Making it a winning situation for everybody. But you need to, believe when people tell you things, but you've got to be able to verify it every single time. And that's what this is about, verifying when people tell you what it is. So hope I've given you some good insight here for those of you that didn't know how to analyze deals and are kind of wondering about it. Hope I clarified a few things for you. Be sure and let me know if I've given you good information. Give me some likes, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that we're doing a good job for you. Hit our notifications, follow us, go watch other videos that we've already done. And we've got more videos coming to you on a weekly basis. So look forward to getting more education out to you. And until I see you again in a video, have a great day.